All right, I think we'll get started. We've got a lot to get through today, and it's only a short session, so we'll get ourselves kicked off and hope everyone who can join up a little bit later can tally on. So hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Channel Islands user group. It really is wonderful to be back. I really do hope everyone on the call today has been enjoying their 2021 so far. Thank you so much again for joining us today. We've got a shorter than usual session this quarter, only taking us through till 12:30. I know all of you guys on the call are very busy indeed, so we shan't take up too much of your valuable time. But again, thanks for joining up. And next slide, please, Jackie. So let's take a look at today's user group team. Panning from left to right, we have myself right here on camera, Ben Bannum. Ultrix addicts, I guess I'm a Continuum consultant also. I've been using Ultrix for the last 5 years. I'm enjoying every second of it. Next, we have a couple of the new recruits in the Continuum team going to be here with you today. So we've got George Godfrey. He's going to be demoing some cool, nifty Ultrix integrations with Power BI. I know a lot of people have been making use of Power BI or taking a look at starting to use Power BI and wondering how they can do so with Ultrix. So George will be taking you through a very nice demonstration to see how you get started doing those sort of things. And last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Matteo Palo with us, who's kindly volunteered to demonstrate how Ultrix users can start to easily leverage powerful real-time instant machine learning straight from Designer. Sounds space age, but trust me, it's super easy, and he's going to be showing you exactly how you can get started as well. Next slide, please. So if you find yourself sitting here at your PC right now thinking, gosh, I wish I had my smiling face up on that screen just a moment ago, then today is also your lucky day, because we're on the hunt for volunteers to help present the user group. If you have any cool, interesting Ultrix stories, use cases, or just fancy being a part of the team, then you're more than welcome to join us. All you have to do is just ping us a line there at inquiries@continuum.ge, and we'll make sure you're signed right on up and be here next quarter for 2021.2. Next slide, please. So let's recap on the agenda for today. I'm sure you've all seen it on the meeting invites that you've been seeing on the LinkedIn post and what have you, but let's go through what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, I'm going to be running us through some Ultrix community updates, question mark. That certainly should be an exclamation mark, much rather. And then giving you a glance at some of the latest features to be released in the latest version of Ultrix 2021.1. That's both going to be Ultrix Designer and Ultrix Server, some nifty new things coming on out. Next on to the demos. So we've got Power BI integration from George there. We're going to do a Tim demo from Matteo. We had got, with all good intentions, do an Intel suite also by George, as you can see on there, but I don't think that's going to take place. We've only got a short amount of time, so cross that one off the list. And continuing the theme from the last few Ultrix user groups, I'll wrap up proceedings by running through a 5-minute mastery session. The objective being that everyone leaves this user group knowing how to use just one Ultrix tool a little bit better. Find out which tool that is later on in the session. So next slide then, please, Jackie. All right. Racing on through to some Ultrix community updates. Let's see what's going on in the Ultrix community. Next slide. Turns out we're the best. The Ultrix community was voted Community of the Year for its efforts for its participants over the course of 2020, which is tremendous news. It really is. I'm personally very proud to be part of a great community of users like you all here on the call today and all around the world who want nothing more to build some awesome Ultrix workflows, have fun doing so, and help other people do the same. So thanks for everyone on the call, and a big congratulations to you all that signed up to the Ultrix community. And if you haven't, what you're doing, get stuck in. It's free. Go to community.ultrix.com, sign up yourself for an account and get stuck in. It really is a lot to find out there. Next slide, please. Now, you may be wondering yourself, what does a successful Ultrix adoption program look like in a business? Well, funnily enough, our latest webinar series with the global head of automation at TMF Group, Rick Smith, what a guy, and Continuum founder Dan Hare tell you exactly how that looks in the latest webinar series. You can see here on screen how analytic process automation is changing financial services. Spoiler alert, it's changing it quite a lot. You can find the pre-recorded session on the Continuum YouTube channel, or you can find it on the Ultrix community as well. Plenty of ways to get involved. A great watch, about an hour in length, but if you're looking to get started adopting Ultrix into your business, or thinking, hey, this is pretty cool stuff, how do we get it on a wider scale, and what sort of framework do we need to have around that, then those guys on that webinar tell you precisely how to go about it in the correct way and all those best practices to follow. So yes, great watch, get signed up and have a peek at that if you're interested. Next slide then, please. All right. Let's get stuck into some updates, some really cool nifty patches and updates coming on through, especially for Designer this month. So next slide, please, Jackie. Let's go on to the Designer updates. As I say, there's some cool, fresh patches coming in. The first of which, I shan't be giving any demonstrations, unfortunately, just for the purposes of keeping this demonstration nice and short, or this user group nice and short, so let's say. But if you are interested in taking a look, then make sure you get this upgraded to 2021.1, and you can go just type on into Google Ultrix 2021.1, that is a mouthful, patches or release notes into Google. First results up there, you can see the entire list and play around for yourselves. But just to give you a debrief on what those key features are, we've got some new intelligent suite tools available. So there's 4 new tools to help you assess the health of your data, set feature types for machine learning, build features for multiple data streams, and automatically create machine learning models. Really cool tools there, such as AutoML, build features, data health, and feature types. All AMP engine for, you can use the AMP engine, which is the Ultrix multi-thread processing engine on all new workflows, rather than having to set that up for each new workflow. It's a quite nice new addition, especially if you are wanting to use the AMP engine for all of your flows. You can use the AMP engine now on analytical apps too. Previously just relegated to just being on the standard Ultrix flows, but now we have the functionality to leverage the power of the new Ultrix AMP engine on your analytical apps too, which really comes into its own when you start deploying said apps onto the server as well, if you have that bit of kit available to you. You can now navigate your tool palette utilizing your keyboards. Who would have thought is ever needed, but I tried it out today on my new Designer and it really is quite nifty. So you can navigate your tool palette using the keyboard, your sort of arrow keys, and then just hit enter. And it pastes that tool directly onto your canvas. It just means you're even more agile in building those flows. The download tool has been updated now, so if you're ever using the download tool to run API queries, get some posts from APIs, and a lot of people are, sometimes you can have a little bit of trouble, especially when you're pushing or querying from APIs, because you can't send a certain amount of requests up at a certain amount of time. So it now comes with this download tool with a throttle option. So you can choose how many or how little requests to ping up to your API at a time, so you don't get back any issues with querying an API too many times. We've got lots more one tool examples. So if you were to just click onto a tool icon on your tool palette, it typically, for some of the new basic Ultrix tools or the legacy Ultrix tools, like all the preparation ones or the join ones, you typically see this nice little blue highlight underneath that says example. You give it a click, it opens a new tab in your Ultrix Designer, and it shows you a workflow for everything about that tool. Now they've expanded that to include the predictive tools, the time series tools, A/B analysis, data investigation, and machine learning tools all have that one workflow example, or one tool example workflow, should I much rather say. So that's really, really cool. I'm so glad that they brought it out, because a lot of people say, hey, how do I get myself involved in predictive? It can be a little troublesome, but now in 2021.1, you can open up those example flows and see how it works directly in Ultrix, and there's some really valuable insights in there to see. So this is some of the best picks that I found. There are some more sort of some minor updates as well, and patches that are in the release notes. Again, if you want to find out that entire list, go ahead and search Ultrix 2021.1 release notes, and you'll see it straight up to the top of your Google results to click on that and have a look through. Now, next slide, please, Jackie. There is not a whole lot coming on with server just for 2021.1, but there is one pretty cool update, and that is for the schedule forecast. So the schedule forecast offers the ability to see all of your schedules in a forward-looking calendar view. Now, this is pretty cool, because previously you just had a list of all the schedules, and I want to say, right, well, I wanted to find out where any potential bottlenecks in my schedules are, i.e. if I'm scheduling 100 flows, just throwing that out there, to kick off at 2 in the morning, then you can imagine there's going to be a big ramp up in CPU and memory usage at that point in time. Previously, a little bit hard to figure out when those bottlenecks appear, but now they offer a heap map within the gallery, only for gallery admins, of course, to identify those upcoming bottlenecks for scheduled workflows. And after identifying said bottlenecks, gallery admins can then also take the next step to avoid those by just editing them on the fly within that heat map as well. To kind of spread out the load of the schedules and spread out the load of the server as well, to ensure continuity of service as well. So that's really quite an important update. I'm glad to see that coming into server. All right, next slide then, please. So we're going to move on to the demonstrations. That's all the updates from me. So George, I'm going to pass the baton over to you, and you're going to hopefully be able to show us some lovely Power BI integrations. You ready?
Hello there to all current and prospective Ultrix users. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you today about the integration between Power BI and Ultrix. So if you don't know what Power BI is, it's a data visualization tool which allows you to turn raw data that you might have within the business into a more digestible visual output for business members. Now, what we have often found is that data stored can be quite messy and not quite in the correct format that is ready for this visualization. But what we do know is that Ultrix is the very best tool in the market for preparing, transforming, and cleansing data. And so quite logically, what we propose is the use of Ultrix within the business to transform your data to a standard that is suitable to visualize for business users. Now, I have a quick demo here which I'll run you through, which is an example of what that might look like. Here you can see I'm reading in two different files, a customer's CSV file and a transactions XML file. So Ultrix can read in multiple different file types at the same time. Then what I'm doing is I am doing some data prep. So here I'm dropping some unwanted columns and changing some data types using a select tool. Here I'm using a data cleanse tool to just clean up the data a bit, get it in a nicer format. And now what I'm doing is I'm filtering on whether a customer responded to an advertisement campaign, because in this instance I might only want to visualize the customers that did respond to that advertisement campaign. But there is an endless possibility on the data preparation that you can do. Ultrix is brilliant at that. It just really it depends on the sort of requirements that your process might have. Now what I'm doing is I am tallying up the total sales per customer, and then finally I'm joining these two data sets together to get a consolidated view of all of my customers with details like their address, their names, as well as the total sales that they had. And now what I can also do is I can output that to an Excel spreadsheet, and I can pick that up within Power BI and start configuring my dashboard like so. So I've made this one earlier, just for the sake of time, but it's very simple to connect an output data source from Alteryx into Power BI. Because we chose a Excel output, we should just click on Excel here, very simply, and direct ourselves to where that Excel file was output from Alteryx. Now here, thankfully, I'm in the exact folder that I should be in, and it's this customers and transactions file. Now I should just select that, and I will have the option to start working on this data and get it to a dashboard very similar to the one that I'm showing you right now. However, unfortunately, there are a few limitations to this, one of which being the fact that if you share this with anyone within the business, they will have to have Power BI desktop installed, which is obviously quite a limitation because someone might not necessarily have that installed. Another such problem is that if you share this with anyone in the business, then they are given this exact screen, which includes a sort of editor's window. And so the person that you share this with could potentially, obviously accidentally, not on purpose, but they could make changes and potentially break the dashboard that you've already created, which is not ideal. And so thankfully there is a slight way around this. If I go back into Alteryx and bring up a separate workflow here, you will see that I have a very similar workflow. In fact, it's pretty much identical, other than this tool here. Now this is a tool which is downloadable from the Alteryx gallery, and when downloaded it will appear in the connectors palette of the tool section up here, and it's this tool here, Power BI Output. Now what this allows you to do is it allows you to publish a data set directly onto the online version of Power BI, ready to be shared with different people around the business, very simply. Now this tool here, I'll show you exactly what it looks like. Here, after I've already input my login credentials, so I've logged in using my Microsoft account from my Continuum email, and what that will allow me to do here, as you can see, is I can either publish my workspace, publish my data, into a workspace that is either my personal workspace, if I just want some data for my personal use to visualize, or I can publish it in a shared directory with different users in the business. So for example, here I'm going to choose the Continuum workspace. Now I can also customize the dataset name and table name, which I've done so here. And of course I'm going to be creating a new dataset, so that is what I'll select here. Now if I give this workflow a run, what it should do is it should output this dataset onto the Power BI online version. Now I've already done this, so let me show you what that looks like over here. So here I can just go onto my Continuum workspace, perfect. And now what we can see here is this is a dataset that I've already uploaded previously. As you can see here, type dataset. I can use this dataset and I can create what's called a report. Now again, I've already done this beforehand for the sake of time, but this is what this report looks like that I've configured, and you will already see that it's pretty much identical, if not exactly identical, to the dashboard that I created in Power BI. It's a report. So there we go. Now what I can do from this location is I can click here and pin to a dashboard. Now I can create a new dashboard and designate a new name that I'd like, but here I will use an existing dashboard for demo's sake that I've already created. I can pin that and I can go to my dashboard, and this is the view that I am given as it loads in. Just a second. Perfect. So we have again the exact same view that I was provided with in the Power BI desktop version, except this time I have directly published that onto a shared workspace, and you will also notice I am not given the option of the editor's window, so I can make sure that anyone that I share this with does not have the option to potentially change, even worst case scenario, break things. Now when we talk about sharing, you can look up here and see that there are two different options of how I can share this with different people in the business. I can either send this into a Teams group or to an individual, So say I want to share this with just a small group of people, that we have a Teams group together. I can then very easily do so using this feature, and I can also click share, and I can type in the name of any individual who I want to share this with, so potentially Ben Banham. Include an optional message, user group demo for example. There we go. And here you will notice that I also have some options in order to restrict the sort of thing that Ben could do with this data. I can choose whether I want him to be able to share the dashboard. So I'll tick that, that's fine. Do I want him to be able to build new content using the underlying data sets? Potentially not, so I can deselect that if I want to. And I can also choose whether to send him an email notification when I send this out. And it's as simple as just clicking share, and that's it, done. You've shared it with someone in the business very simply by directly uploading that data set which you've cleansed and prepared in Alteryx onto the Power BI online service to provide a full end-to-end solution from data preparation, data cleansing, data merging, and then eventually data visualization to view for business users. Now obviously this was a very quick demo, but if you'd love to see more, then please feel free to get in touch about how we can help you utilize Alteryx to integrate with Power BI and create these great visualization tools with good quality, repeatable, automated data. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, awesome. Thanks so much, George, for your sort of demonstration there. Really great to see how Alteryx can be simply be integrated with Power BI. I'm sure loads of people are trying to do the same. So yeah, good to see that up on screen. Now, if we could flick on back to the presentation. Here we go. Now I'm going to pass this baton from myself over to Matteo. You're up on screen. So Matteo is going to show us all of the real-time instant machine learning that's available via the TIM forecasting tool in Alteryx. Matteo, over to you. And next slide, please, Jackie.
Thank you very much, Ben. So today I'm just going to be doing a quick introduction and demonstration into time series forecasting and how it can be used in Alteryx. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So TIM is a time series forecasting platform brought to us by our newest partners, TangentWorks. So time series forecasting is where we take a series of data points which have a timestamp at regular intervals. So this may be yearly data, but it could also be right down to data every second. And so what TIM will do is you can tell it, I want to predict this certain variable, and I want to predict it for the next, say, week. And TIM will build a model and give you predictions on what it thinks it could look like. You can also enrich this data with what are called predictor variables. So you may know that the weather might impact your sales, for example. And so you can also give it those data points to enrich the data. If we go to the next slide, please. So time series can be used absolutely anywhere, provided you have that data. So you could use it, for example, in forecasting sales, which would help you to understand how much product you might need to buy for the following few months. You might analyze some COVID figures. A lot of energy companies will use it to understand the demand that they might have on their grids. And it would also give you very good ideas of what traffic may look like. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So I'm just going to show here a quick introduction on how TIM could be used. So hopefully we should be able to share my screen, yep. So here we just have a simple data set of daily data on how many shorts and jackets are sold. So we have our TIM tool here, which can be just dragged down from the predictive palette once you've downloaded it. It's very simple to log in, and all you have to do is tell it what you want predicted, and it will give you a graph like this. So once it loads, here we can see the blue data is the sales data. We've already kind of historical sales data. So we can see how many jackets are sold each day. And on the end here, you can see there is there are some orange data points, which are our predictions that Tim has made. But we have no idea how good these predictions may be, and you might not want to wait the week that you would have to know if they're any good. So we can do what's called backtesting, where we run the model and see how well it's done on the data that we already have. So once again, we have the same blue historic data here. And if I zoom in on this part here, the gray data is some out of sample backtesting, which shows us the kind of how well the model has done against the real data, which we can see it's definitely picked up the trends there. It's not perfect, but it would certainly give you an idea of what your sales may look like. So Tim will also give you some data to help explore your issues further. So here we have what's called predictor importance. So if I look here, it will tell us what kind of variables Tim has been using to make our models. So the most important variable is actually how many units were sold in the last maybe week, but also it's important whether it's a lockdown or not, and finally what the temperature is, which makes sense if we're selling jackets. So if we can just quickly go back to the presentation, Jackie. Here we go, and the next slide. So for some people, they may have done time series forecasting in Alteryx before. They have two tools called ARIMA and ETS. So I wanted to give a quick comparison as to why you would want to use Tim over these tools. So on the graph on the right, we have what's called the RMSE, which is the root mean square error, and MAPE, or MAPE, which is the mean absolute percentage error. And as we can see, that the green Tim tools, the green Tim bar is a lot better. You get less error, and the furthest right graph shows that Tim is a lot quicker than Alteryx as well. And the final very useful feature that Tim has that I want to show you for is that when you have store data, you might have, say, 10 different products across 10 different stores, and you wouldn't want to use the same model for all of them. And Tim can easily create multiple models at once, so you can get more accurate data on each product. So this was just a quick demonstration, but of course, if you would like to see some more bespoke demonstrations, please get in touch. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matteo, for that wonderful demonstration. That real-time instant ML aspect to Tim is awesome, which means it recreates a model every time you pass it through, just based on the latest data, so you get the most accurate results every single time. Super a space age bit of kit, but super easily accessible by Alteryx, of course. All right, well, I noticed we've got just a couple of minutes left, and it's a 5-minute mastery session, so doing the maths, we're going to overrun for a few minutes. If you have to drop on off, I want to say thank you again for joining us, but what I'm going to do is just going to spend a few minutes to go through this mastery session. As you can see here, it's going to be the dynamic rename tool. So one of my favorite tools, I must admit. What I'm going to do is just going to share my screen right now, and we'll get it up and running. Okay, let's share my screen too. Can you see that? Yeah. All right, so what I've done is just produce myself a small little workflow. I'm going to run you through 4 of my favorite uses of the dynamic rename tool. You can find it in the developer category. You can't typically see it sometimes on your toolbar, but you have to scroll all the way across here, find developer. And if you don't see it, maybe if you're just starting out of Ultrix, sometimes it only shows you just the getting started tools in your tool palette. Give a click on this big plus button up here and make sure you've got all the tools selected, and I'll make sure that you can see it up there on your toolbar. Now, let's picture this. I'm just going to run my flow. I'll run you through a few examples here. Have you ever been reading in a file and say, right, okay, I'm going to transpose it across, do a little bit of hidgery pokery on that data, and then I'm going to cross tab it back. But then you're just like, oh my goodness, what's happened to my field headers? I've got all these underscores in there, and it can be a right pain. Maybe if you want to drop down a select tool and trying to individually rename these tools, but not anymore. What you can do is drop on down a dynamic rename tool like I've done here. I'm going to give it a click and run you through some of the configuration. You can rename all of the fields that you've had selected here. I've just selected all by utilizing a formula, and as you can see here in my expression builder, I've just put in replace current field, which is any of the fields that I've got selected, replace that underscore with a space, and lo and behold, I get back to my original nice lovely column headers before that cross tab took place. Now, if you've got a data set here and we've just read it on in, and I've got my headers coming on through as the first row as data, and all I want to do is to simply bump these up to promote them to the column header level, then again drop on down another dynamic rename tool, and you can just simply take those field names from the first row of data. There's a big drop down here, all the different uses you can do in this tool. If I flick to the output, here we go, nice and easy, quick change from there. We've also got the opportunity here to rename the right input metadata. That's quite funny. So we've got all of our data coming on through here. And I've got my headers coming through here as well. Now, if I click on the left input, I can see what I've done is said they take the field names from right input metadata. If I flick to the output, I can see here, then I can see that I'm going to take my field names from the metadata of the incoming data sets. So maybe you've got two data sets with the exact same contents within there, but one has the headers, one doesn't, then you can join them together in that dynamic rename tool by taking the field names from the metadata of the other data set. Really cool. I've only just recently been using that in the last couple of months. And let's say we've got another example here with a data set of no headers again, but I do have maybe a file which has the mappings of what the old name is and what the new name is. Maybe it doesn't even not have any headers. Maybe it's got some old headers and you want to go quickly update those. Then again, drop down another dynamic rename tool, simply with your find and replace almost, and you can just simply click on here, take the field names from the right input rows. We can see this is the right input here, and to say find the old name, replace it with the new name, and I'll go to the output. Voila, we've got ourselves a nicely renamed data set. So that is just very quickly some of the ways that I personally use dynamic rename. Hopefully now you can take some of these lessons with you out of the session and start to use this tool a little bit better. All right, so thank you once again for everyone who's joined up. I'm going to conclude the session here. We have overrun ever so slightly, but thanks again for everyone joining up. It's been a pleasure to present to you for the 2021.1 user group. We shall be back sooner rather than later in the next quarter. As soon as 2021.2, that is a bit of a mouthful, is released, then we'll organize ourselves the next user group. And again, if you want to be involved in the user group team, make sure you get us get an message to inquiries@continuum.je, and we'll make sure you're part of the team. And you could be here up on screen next time, who knows, sharing all of your cool Ultrix stories. All right, well, thank you once again, everyone, for joining up. Hope you have a great rest of your day and a very pleasant afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.